Hi, this is Tom Lombardo, Director of the Center for Future Consciousness and the Wisdom Page, and this is Contemporary Trends and Theories and Paradigms of the Future, Part 3. I will only be highlighting some of the authors and trends and theories on the slides on this presentation, but a complete text of the entire narration as well as all three parts of this presentation can be found at my website, centerforfutureconsciousness.com. Human society, globalization, urbanization, and population. Trends. What we see is increasing economic interdependency across the globe. We see both benefits and negative consequences of modernization spreading across the world. Increasing communication and networking of individuals, groups, and cultures. Cross-fertilization of it all. The mixing and blending of cultures, and the emergence of a world culture with both positive and negative perspectives on it. The emergence of global issues, global organizations, and global consciousness. The empowerment of the individual and the cosmopolitan citizen emerging. The triumph of democracy over the last couple hundred years, and diversity, tolerance, and human rights, but still innumerable challenges in these areas ahead of us. The critique of McWorld on the negative side, the critique of westernization, centralized control, Americanization, homogenation, and the monoculture that we see around this. We also see critiques of the capitalist and globalization connection, of the significance of power and greed. We see the clash of civilizations, east and west, of individuality and conformity. Theories. The End of History and the Last Man, and other books by Francis Fukuyama, chronicling the ongoing modern spread of democracy across the globe. The Lexus and the Olive Tree, and The World is Flat, and other books by Thomas Friedman, chronicling the clash of globalism and local cultures and the technological empowerment of individuals to reach a global audience and market. Megatrends 2000 and other books by John Nesbitt. Globalization is happening. It is good. It is empowering the individual. Jihad versus McWorld by Barber. The world is controlled by transnational corporations that are usurping our freedom. The Clash of Civilizations and the Remaking of World Order by Huntington. No one dominant culture at a global level, and Huntington anticipating the ongoing conflict among cultures in the years ahead. Rescuing All Our Futures by Zadar. The threat of a singular dominant culture, and Zadar's argument for diverse visions of the future as opposed to a singular one. All Connected Now by Walter Truett Anderson, a comprehensive, multifaceted theory of globalization, its issues, and its future. And finally, Global Brain by Howard Bloom, the long-term history of emerging global intelligence and a globalized human society. Economics and resources. On this slide, we see a graph, a map showing the unequal distribution of power, economic wealth, and innovation across the globe from Richard Florida. Trends. Economic output has increased 60-fold in the last 100 years. There is increasing trade and cross-fertilization, the reciprocal exchange of products and of innovation, the emergence of a global economic system, which has been going on, in fact, for a couple hundred years at least. The average global income has quadrupled in the last 100 years, and there are material and health benefits exhibiting accelerative growth across the globe. Relative poverty is shrinking. We see the transformation of our economy in the last 100 years from agriculture to industrial to information and human services, and the evolution of professions, but we see a growing disparity of the super rich and the poor and everybody else. Our economic system seems to slight domestic, nurturing, caring professions as one critique of our economic system across the globe. We see our global economy depleting natural resources and destroying the earth, and perhaps it is unsustainable. And we see ongoing critiques of profit, greed, and growth models of quality of life and progress, and potentially the ongoing creation of unnecessary needs. Theories, Paradigms in Progress, and other books by Hazel Henderson. The application of open systems concepts to economy, a vision of a world of cooperative mutual benefit, and the importance of ethics in economics. The Rise of the Creative Class by Richard Florida, and other books. How there is a concentration of wealth, intelligence, and innovation in local areas within the world. The world is not flat. The Virtue of Prosperity by De Souza. The Value of Wealth and how it benefits us socially and ethically, and how our values have changed in modern times. The Rational Optimist by Matt Ridley. The Immense Improvements in Quality of Life in Modern Times. The Importance of Exchange and Interdependency. The Improving State of the World by Gotlanke. How everybody is benefiting from economic growth. The Genius of the Beast by Howard Bloom. A defense of the power and value of capitalism. The Progress Paradox by Easterbrook. Why we are getting richer but not happier. And The Real Wealth of Nations by Rian Eisler, regarding the neglected importance of nurturance as part of our overall economy and the need to include it in our economic models to gain a more realistic sense of progress into the future. Education. Trends. Increasing worldwide literacy and education, increasing technological access to education, producing individual empowerment and growing educational global resources, the accelerated growth of online education, the decline of traditional centralized schools and universities. But on the negative side, as some people will argue, we see a decline in rationality and intelligence in popular culture, of sensationalism, superficiality, media immersion, techno-addiction and dependency, presentism, a loss of standards, a fragmented, flighty, distracted consciousness, and a dumbing down of schools, standards, and degrees. And finally, as a negative trend, the continued fragmentation and customization of education involving an absence of holism, integration of curriculum, of ethics and character and wisdom. On theories, Wisdom, Consciousness, and the Future by Tom Lombardo, and other wisdom books. The central importance of wisdom in education and in our future psychosocial evolution and development. The Disciplined Mind and 5 Minds for the Future by Howard Gardner. On the importance of virtue education and those capacities that need to be taught for the future. A Hidden Wholeness and the Courage to Teach by Parker Palmer. The importance of authentic, engaging teachers. How People Learn by John Bransford. The Psychology of Deep Learning. The Age of American Unreason by Susan Jacoby. A critique of anti-intellectualism in America. Critical Thinking by Paul and Elder, Fundamental Principles and Values of Critical Thinking and Their Centrality for the Educated Mind of the Future, Amusing Ourselves to Death by Postman, The Trivialization and Fragmentation of American Intellect and Consciousness. Marriage, Love, Women and Men, and the Family. Trends. The ebb and flow in history of women's power and rights, but in the last 100 years, with modern feminist movements, we see increasing freedom, social status, power, and economic wealth associated with women. We see a shift away from patriarchal marriage, a shift away from traditional socially arranged marriage to romance, love-based, individually determined partnerships of equality. We see the ethical evolution of marriage. We see a shift away from sexual stereotypes and roles, at least in some parts of the world. The sexual revolution produced increasing sexual freedom. We see a diversification of marriages and families, and the rise of gay rights and diverse marriages and diverse households. But we see global counter-reactions to feminine rights and freedom love-based marriage. We see the continued subjugation and brutality against women at a global level. Theories. Sex, Time, and Power by Leonard Schlein, The Evolution and Psychological Significance of Partnerships. Marriage, A History and the Way We Never Were by Stephanie Coons, The Historical Evolution of Bonding, Romance, and Marriage and Where It Could Be Heading in the Future. And we see The Chalice and the Blade and numerous other books by Rain Eisler chronicling the movement away from dominance hierarchical social systems toward partnership systems and the impact it will have and is having on both men and women, and the need in her mind for a much more full-blown partnership society across the globe. Psychological evolution. Trends. We see ongoing biological evolution supporting psychological evolution. We see ongoing efforts toward purposeful evolution through religion, philosophy, social movements, psychology, and ethical efforts involving the transformation and expanding of consciousness in the human self. In the last 150 years, we've seen the development of the science of psychology and the development and application of mental health psychology to human welfare. We see the rapid evolution of scientific understanding of the brain and consciousness. We see an evolving concept of mental well-being and psychological excellence. We see ongoing efforts to technologically augment and evolve the human mind, using technology to purposefully evolve our consciousness and our minds. And we see the emergence of new modern psychological disorders connected with stress, anxiety, information overload, drugs, speed, mental fragmentation. Indeed, mental illness may be evolving. Theories. Beginning with the classic studies of Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow, we see various theories of enhanced human psychology emerging in the 20th and early 21st century. We see From Self Comes to Mind by Damasio, Consciousness by Koch, and Phi by Tononi, advances in the study and theory of the brain, the self, and consciousness. In Handbook of Positive Psychology by Snyder and Lopez, Flourish by Martin Seligman, Positivity by Fredrickson, we see the emergence of a new theory of mental well-being in contrast to the emphasis through most of the 20th century on mental illness. In The Phenomena of Man, written by Teilhard de Chardin, we see efforts to connect conscious evolution with cosmic and spiritual themes. More recently, we see in The Evolving Self by Mahai Csikszentmihalyi an evolutionary view of the future self. And The Future of the Self by Walter Truett Anderson presents a emerging, pluralistic, highly flexible, postmodern vision of the self. In MindScan, we explore downloading consciousness, mind, and the self into a machine, and in Supersizing the Mind by Andy Clark, we see the theory of the techno-physically supported extended mind. Culture, values, and ethics. Cultural trends. There has been an accelerative evolution of art, music, design, clothing, architecture, cinema, entertainment, continuing the 20th century trends in all of these areas. We see technology infusing into culture and entertainment. We see the evolution and ubiquity of the media and advertising and the emergence of interactive media. We see cross-cultural fertilization and the globalization of culture. But on the negative side, we see critiques of the excessive commercialism, consumerism, technologism, monetization, advertising, and the disease of affluenza, of the loss of the fantasy-reality distinction. We see a society of the spectacle, of shallow cultural icons, and being addicted to our distractions. Ethical trends. There has been an evolution from the mythic, religious, and authoritarian ethics of the past to more secular, philosophical, and psychological ethics in the present. We see an ongoing evolution from patriarchal to feminist dual gender ethics. We see a relative shift from tradition and conformity to freedom and individualism. We see the ongoing rise of human rights and the rise of global perspectives on ethics and a global ethics movement and the rise of ecological ethics. Theories. The Lucifer Principle by Bloom and the Lucifer Effect by Zimbardo. The evil and violent dimensions of humans in our history and why it is there. The Better Angels of Our Nature by Pinker. The argument that, in fact, there has been ethical evolution in modern times. The Science of Good and Evil by Schirmer. Historical analysis of the evolution of ethics. And in the center of this slide, we see Beyond Good and Evil by Friedrich Nietzsche. The classic critique of traditional authoritarian ethics written toward the end of the 19th century. The Postmodern Turn by Best and Kellner, a definitive explanation of postmodern views on values and ethics. And The Moral Landscape by Sam Harris, an argument that ethics can be based on science and empirical evidence. Religion and spirituality. Trends. The rise of eclectic, individualized, globalized, New Age spirituality. The modernization and liberalization of religion in contemporary times. Cosmotheology, efforts to synthesize contemporary science, evolution, and cosmology with religious and spiritual visions. Efforts to create new mythologies of the future, to create cosmic, evolutionary, scientific visions of God. We see the ongoing development of technology, commercialism, and the pop culture of religion. We see continued efforts being made to expand the social functions of religion within our contemporary world. But we see an ongoing conflict and integration and dialectic, as it has been for hundreds of years, between science and religion, between mythos and logos, and most recently between creationism and evolution. Recently, we have seen secular and atheist critiques of religion, the new atheism. But we've seen over the last 100 years the counter-reaction of the rise of fundamentalism in the United States and worldwide. And on the theory end of it, we see the works of Karen Armstrong, A History of God, The Battle for God, and The Case for God, on the value and meaning of belief in God, of the contrast between mythos and logos, and a history of fundamentalism, The Transformation of American Religion by Alan Wolfe, the cultural and social dimensions of religious practice in the United States. There are such classic works on myth and religion, such as by Joseph Campbell and by Houston Smith, which articulate the value of myth and the value and meanings of world religions. We see books such as The End of Faith and Letter to a Christian Nation by Sam Harris, articulating the new atheist critiques of the irrationality of religion. The Evolution of God by Wright, the perception of deities and spirits in everyday life and how God has evolved within human experience. And Thank God for Evolution by Michael Dowd, we see an effort to synthesize evolution with God. And in Religion and Science by Barbour, we see an effort to integrate contemporary philosophy, science, and God. In Enlighten Next and Evolutionary Enlightenment by Andrew Cohen, we see efforts to integrate evolution with theories of enlightenment. Now, many different theories that I've already presented could be seen as integrative, covering all those different dimensions of human reality, but some in particular that I want to highlight include Matters of Consequence Toward Wisdom in the Wisdom Page by Copthorne MacDonald and Tom Lombardo, where wisdom is seen at the center of a philosophy of life, and in particular philosophy of life for the future. The State of the Future by the Millennium Project with Jerome Glenn, involving the collective intelligence of human efforts being made to monitor, identify, integrate, and deal with a articulated sense of global challenges across the globe. The Next Enlightenment by Walter Truett Anderson, The History and Meaning of Enlightenment and Its Value for the Future. Emergence and Birth 2012 by Barbara Marx Hubbard, The Theory of Conscious Evolution as an Approach to the Past, Present, and the Future. A Brief History of Everything and Integral Naked by Ken Wilber, and many other books. Efforts to articulate an integral philosophy encompassing all dimensions of human existence. Spiral Dynamics by Beck and Cohen, a developmental stage model of the social structure, modes of thinking, and values of human civilization throughout history and into the future. And finally, Chaos in the Evolving Ecological Universe, and other books and website by Sally Gerner, attempting to demonstrate how contemporary open systems theory and evolutionary theory can be applied to human society as a whole and into the future. Summary and conclusion. Where do we go from here? There are multiple dimensions of progress, as well as many problems and dangers facing us today. There are multiple views on the same facts and possibilities. There indeed is realistic grounds for both hope and fear regarding the future. There, though, is a ubiquity of dynamism, of change, of evolution across the universe, nature, society, technology, and humanity. Everything is changing. There is possibility, uncertainty, chaos, surprises, and adventure ahead of us. We should expect all of this, and we should expect creative responses from humanity. There is, though, the ongoing historical tension and integration of stasis and emphasis on the past versus emphasis on the future and change. This tension has been going on within human civilization for hundreds, if not thousands of years. There is indeed progress in the development of knowledge, of science, of technology, and material growth, and it is all positive, but it needs to be more thoughtfully guided with wisdom, higher human values, and ethics. There is ongoing purposeful evolution in humanity, in the environment, in life, and this is positive, but again it needs to be more thoughtfully guided with a greater sense of higher human values, ethics, and wisdom. There is the reciprocal evolution and synthesis of technology, humanity, and nature, and the potential of a technological singularity which would involve the transcendence or assimilation of humanity into some higher level of intelligence. There is the value of a holistic perspective on humanity involving a cosmic and ecological and global sense of who we are and how we fit into things. And then in particular, there is a value and necessity for us journeying into space. A significant challenge in the years ahead is the ongoing successful integration of society and nature, which needs to address population growth, the use of resources, the sustainability of our culture, and the issue of environmental respect. It is a pivotal issue that we define, guide, and create an integrative social-ecological evolution, that we define and implement an ecologically sound set of utopian ideals. Throughout history, there has been a social dialectic between individualism and conformity, diversity and unity, freedom and order. All of these are issues and challenges for the future. We also need to address equality and balance of power, the balance of East and West, the balance of North and South, the balance of the feminine and the masculine. Those are challenges ahead of us as well. Also, justice and human rights is another significant challenge for future global society. There is the problem of capitalism. Although it generates significant growth, it seems to also generate an economic divide and an excessive emphasis on commercialism and consumerism. And what do we do about that? A pivotal issue regarding the global improvement of quality of life is that we expand our concept of quality of life, that we expand our values, and this requires an evolution in our culture. We see around us, as we have in the past, ethical, educational, and psychological evolution. That is the ongoing pursuit of enhanced modes of consciousness of mind and self-identity, and hopefully this will continue in the future. There is the ongoing conflict of traditional religion and the new spiritualities, and efforts being made to somehow bring them together more peacefully. There are the ongoing efforts to try to synthesize religion and science. Given the fact that there is both pluralism and conflicts in perspectives and values on preferable futures, on paradigms and theories of preferable futures, there will be a challenge and a difficulty in being able to successfully realize and progress on many of our goals for the future. But given numerous priorities and values and numerous perspectives, what indeed we need is a new enlightenment, a new wise society that is able to creatively integrate these different perspectives and thoughtfully guide our future. And that is the end of part 3.